Hi, my name is Krista, and I'm going to be your virtual assistant on helping you finish your moss wall art. Now, normally we would have this course in person, which is absolutely fantastic because we get to see everybody's different creations when you're all said and done. But because of the COVID-19 restrictions that were in place, we cannot do this. So we figured this was the next best option. So behind me, you'll see a sample of what one would look like when it's completed. Now yours may be different, I mean, because you don't have to have it in landscape. You can have it set up in portrait mode. Your heart could be off-centered. It could be, you know what I mean, down in the corner. It's going to be up to you as you start going, and you'll see as you get going what you want to do with it. Some people also have a different color of moss that they picked because we had the light green, we had dark green, we had purple and pink options. So by now you all should have picked up your kits. Inside your kits, you would have found the frame. There's going to be 2 pieces of paper, which will be help for measuring out our birch bark. You'll have whatever option of moss that you selected, and you'll have the cutout for the heart. Okay, at home now you should have had scissors, a pencil or a pen, a glue gun. Okay, now my glue gun's been turned on and ready to go, so we're all set and ready. So the first thing you're going to want to do is just make a little bit of room here, is you're going to take one of these pieces of paper and we're going to set it down on a hard surface. Now this piece of paper fits on the inside of the picture frame like this. Now that's going to help us for measuring out your birch bark, because it is, you know, I mean, different pieces, because it is natural. They're not all, you know, I mean, per se nice and even pieces, so you're going to have to play with them. Now the only other thing you'll have to do before we get going is decide whether you want to put it in a landscape mode or if you want portrait mode. Okay, and the reason why I'm saying that is because as we start laying our birch bark, you'll notice that there's lines in our birch bark. So whatever directions we want to go, you'll have to decide which way you want your lines. So I like placing, like if I'm going the landscape mode, sorry, then I'm going to put it going across so the lines are flowing across the paper. Same with the feet. So if you're doing portrait mode, try and put your lines going across the paper. Okay, now you don't have to. If you want, you can do your lines up and down. That's going to be completely up to you. Okay, so I think I'm going to do the landscape mode just because I like the landscape modes. So what you do is you put your birch bark down, and we're going to start covering this bottom thing. Now you might have pieces of, you know what I mean, like curly pieces of birch bark that are flipping up. You can cut them off, or you can leave them there. Sometimes I just find cutting them off, it's a little bit easier to work with. Okay, so we're just going to keep going through, pushing it down, and we're just going to try this like a jigsaw puzzle. What we want to do is make sure we cover this white area. And you can cut the pieces, I mean, as you need them. So I'll say this one here I'm going to be cutting, just because I have 2 areas here that I want to fill in. Okay. Yeah, I mean, play with your placements. See which one looks better. Now it's a little bit of, you know what I mean, like I said, a jigsaw puzzle. So you may have to rearrange, place it a different way. We'll definitely be seeing how talented we are with our hands, being able to keep them all down. Okay, so I think I have it here so that all my pieces are covering the white. I'm not too sure if you can see this. I'm hoping you can. So this is where we can take another piece of paper, and now we're going to cover the top of it. Okay. All right, so we've got the area covered. We take our pen or pencil, and we're going to trace along the paper. See, I'm already losing pieces of my birch bark. Okay. Now, if you were really handy with an X-Acto blade, you could skip a step. You could essentially just place it in your frame and then cut it with the X-Acto blade right along the edges. But because I know not everybody has X-Acto blades, we'll go with a scissor root. So after we're all traced, now you'll go around, you'll see, I'm not sure if you can see this or not, but now there's lines on the birch bark, okay? So now we're just gonna go through and cut. And this is where it's gonna be turned into a jigsaw puzzle afterwards, because then we have to try and place it all back together again. So what I normally try and do is take one piece at a time. When I pick it up, I put it back down in the same spot. Okay. Okay. Cut here. Okay. All right, so I've got my pieces, they're cut. Now we'll go ahead and we're gonna put them onto the frame. We're not gonna glue it, we're just gonna place your birch bark onto the frame. And this will just help us see, you know what I mean, where we have to fine tune a little bit. Okay, so as you see, it fits. So we're still doing good. All right, so now we've got it sitting here. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna take our piece of paper with the heart and we're gonna cut it out. Hopefully you haven't buried your scissors like I did. Cut out this heart. Hopefully your scissors are a little bit better than mine. Mine are a little on the dull side here. Now, if you're really good at drawing hearts, feel free to draw the heart too. I find it's, for myself, I find it's a little bit easier for tracing wise. Okay, so now we have our heart. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hold down our pieces again. Okay, we're gonna put our heart wherever we want, whether it's up in the corner, down low. I think this one here, I'm just gonna off-center it a little bit and put it kind of up in the corner here. Okay, so once you have it where you want it placed, you guessed it, we're going to trace around the heart. And I've already lost my pencil. Here we are. Okay. Now, if your birch bark tends to be, you know what I mean, really on the curly side, I'm going to suggest for our next step, I'm taking this piece away too fast here. That you can take either your pieces and cut out your heart, or if you're finding you're having a really hard time with the birch bark, just leave it down and we'll glue it onto the board, and then you'll be able to glue your moss on top of it. Just as long as you have, you know what I mean, either or of some kind of a marking that you can follow on your birch bark. So this one here, I'm actually going to glue my pieces down because you see I have a couple of really twirly pieces, and so for me I think it's going to be easier being able just to glue it down on this one. All right, so I'll just kind of remember which order that we put them in. So, and all we're going to do is we're going to take our hot glue, glue it on, try and do it around the edges. Okay, and then we'll attach it onto our board. Press down firmly. Now if you have pieces like this where, I don't know if you can see, but there's like little pockets, I put hot glue in there too just to help hold it down, because after time you'll find that it may try and pop up on you at the end, right? So, all right, so I know my heart is here. So again, we're gonna around the edges. Okay. And do be careful when you're doing this because the glue is hot. I think I can hear some of you swearing. I swear every time I do these, I keep saying to myself, oh, I'm going to get one of those, you know, those plastic finger protectors. But I never do. So now this one here, I'm just going to fine tune a little bit just to cut it. I got a really super curly piece and I don't like it, so there. Now I can finish gluing that. And you'll have to remember, because it is natural, it's not going to be perfect. You're going to have pieces that are floating up. The colors may not quite match. Okay, to make sure I'm putting my right pieces in the right pieces. So this one here I may try and tuck under a little bit. And I'll have to straighten this out. You'll see as you go if you have to fine tune something. Okay. Okay, the next piece, which will be our final piece on it. Always put your piece down too, I mean, before you glue it, just to make sure, you know what I mean, you don't want to add something, cut it off, and just to make sure it's also the right piece. Okay, you'll be able to see where you have to add up sections. Sorry, my surface isn't very straight, so it's a couple more pieces I gotta glue down here. Okay. I'm just trying to see whether I want to add something else in there, but not. All right, so as you can see, I've got my birch bark base down. Okay, a little rough here or there, but you'll see at the end of it, once we add all our stuff in, you won't even notice it. All right, so the next part is we're going to do our moss. Now you'll notice when you're looking at the moss, some of it has, you can tell it's got like a direction. Like say this one here, It's nice and fluffy at the top. We're going to work our way from the top of the heart and down. So you just want to make sure when you're looking at your moss that you're kind of putting it in the same direction as the rest. Otherwise it'll look kind of not as full. Okay, so starting at the top, we just kind of place one, and we're going to glue, everything gets glued down. So just throw some glue on there, place it on, and then we just keep going. Now don't worry if it goes over your line, because we can fine tune at the end with the scissors. The moss is very, very forgiving. Okay. So when you're going down, you want to overlap just slightly, just so you're not going to see any gaps in the end. Yes, I did get hot glue there. Could you hear me swearing? Yeah, a little bit of trouble trying to decide where we wanted to put that piece. Okay. As you can see, the longest part is just getting the birch bark placement down, because afterwards the rest of it just kind of flies through and you'll be done before you know it. Okay. See, I'm at the fluffy point right now here. Off. Now you see there's a couple of little spaces that I still got to fill in, so we can go through and go ahead and do that. You still should have, I mean, plenty enough moss to be able to fill in your blanks there. So. Okay, so we've got our blanks filled in. Now you can see I've got some, I mean, it's kind of going off the course. So you can take your scissors if you want, you just trim it up. I've got cobwebs going on, my hot glue cobwebs, I guess you could call them. Okay. And again, my scissors are horrible. I should have checked before I got going. Okay. a couple of little spots I just want to fine tune here. What you want to do is make sure that you can't see your tracing of the hearts. A couple spots where you just kind of bare, so I'm just throwing the hot glue in here. Okay. Okay. A couple pieces that I'm still gonna. Okay, so now we're at this point here. Now I'm going to do something a little bit different. So if I can't find my marker. So what we're going to do, I just figured it'd be a little bit cute. I'm just going to put D and K. It just makes it a little bit more personal. So now you're at the point where, should you decide, like, you can put, like, say if you have beads or any other ornaments, if you want to put pieces of wood going up here to outline your hearts, this is going to be the part where it's going to make it more personal for you. Or you can just leave as is, which I will be leaving mine as is because I like the look of just as it is. Now you can go through and, you know what I mean, trim some of this stuff up here, but I'm going to leave mine, like I said, as is, just because I like the natural look of it. You'll never be able to get it perfect unless you can get a sheet of birch bark that's, I mean, going to cover your whole thing. It's hard to do. You can use, you know, your vinyl. I know I've seen birch bark vinyl, which is great for projects like this. It's just, you don't get that natural look and feel, right? So once you're done, the way the frames are made, they don't need any particular hangers. They're indented, so you can just hang them up on the wall. And away you go. So I hope you've enjoyed this quick little tutorial. If you have any problems or questions, just give us a holler. We'll be online on the website page, so you can just get a hold of us there, and we'll see what we can do to help you out. Happy crafting!